G'day everybody and welcome to another Cooey podcast. I'm Scott Poynton and today I'm just having a chat to you on my own. I don't have any guests with me. I do have my small dog Finn, but he's curled up in the corner and he doesn't say much. Just thought I'd share with you some thoughts and some things that have been happening. It's been an interesting week for me. My wife's been away. She's in Cairo with work. My eldest son's in the UK studying for his big exams that come up later in the year, and my young bloke's got mock exams at school. So we've been doing lots of family things. And amongst all that, we've had this last week we had that terrible shooting in the US. And I've been sort of thinking about that a lot, of course, and reading all the debates and all of the articles that are coming on Facebook. And last night I was really pleased when I saw an article appear in the New York Times. It was an op-ed and it's entitled "The Boys Are Not All Right," and it's by Michael Ian Black. And I was so pleased to see this article. I was talking with my wife and some friends last week about the fact that, of course, everyone's talking about guns, but no one seems to mention that it's these white boys or white men that are doing these shootings. Well, it's not true that no one mentions it. Of course they do, but it seems to be brushed aside. People who are concerned around terrorism, of course, point out that all of these shootings just about are not done by Muslims. But it does just keep coming back so many times to young boys going into schools and killing so many people. And we quickly brush that aside as mental illness, that he must be mentally ill. Well, yes, let's be clear. I guess the person's not really in their right mind when they do those things. And then the focus goes on to guns. And of course, that's right too. The easy access with which people have to guns in the US is frightening. And of course, in countries like Australia, where I came from, as everyone likes to point out, since the Port Arthur massacre all those years ago, there hasn't been another mass shooting. So gun control is really important. But I'm left worrying, and this article was a really godsend for me, I'm left worrying that even if the boys don't have guns, there's something not right. There's still something that's going on there. And if it doesn't manifest itself as a mass shooting, it will manifest itself in another way. And so I ask myself, what are we doing to these young men, to these boys? The article, I'm not going to read it here in great detail, but I've got it here, I've printed it, and he talks about America's boys are broken and it's killing us. And I don't think it's just in America. It's wrong to say, America's a special country and they're all so weird. Maybe there's something worse in America. I don't know. But I read another article, great articles coming out lately, another article late last week, which is a report by Coert Engels. It appeared in IdeaPod, and it says, "We are born creative geniuses, and the education system dumbs us down," according to NASA scientists. So whenever NASA scientists get involved, we tend to listen. Well, I do. I think NASA scientists must be pretty, reputable people. And it says here, at a TEDx Tucson talk, Dr. George Land dropped a bombshell when he told his audience about the shocking result of a creativity test developed for NASA but subsequently used to test school children. What does it say here? He said the scientists gave the test to 1,600 children between the ages of 4 and 5. What they found shocked them. This is a test that looks at the ability to come up with new, different and innovative ideas to problems. What percentage of those children do you think fell in the genius category of imagination? A full 98%. Amazing. Yeah, and it goes on to say that it gets more interesting. They said that they tested the children again when they were 10 years old, and by then, only 30% of the children fell into the genius category of imagination. And then they tested the kids again when they were 15, and the figure had dropped to 12%. And then it says, what about us adults? How many of us are still in contact with our creative genius after years of schooling? Sadly, only 2%. Amazing. So the kids have gone from 98% in the genius category for imagination when they were 5 and 6 down to 2%. And I sit here and I'm not linking the two, the school system and the mass shootings that are happening in the US, but I just can't get away from this sense that there's something wrong. There's something wrong in our system that we're producing, or I shouldn't say producing, but that kids are getting squashed through these systems, coming out the other side with a terrible diminution of their creative genius when it comes to imagination, and God knows we need imagination when it comes to solving many of the world's problems. So that speaks, I think, to some problems in our education system. But beyond that, this call to violence, this urge to violence that the kids have got, this brokenness. And when, of course, I look in the political system around the world, we see so much brokenness. And I think our friend in the White House is a great example of someone who's very broken, not only what he says, but what he does and what he's done in the past. So it would be an awful thing to say that Donald Trump is a role model, but of course he's the president and people do look up to him. And of course the sad thing is, the extraordinary thing is that he was voted in the first place, suggesting a lot of broken people may have voted for him. So there's something amiss, and it's not just in America. I look at the political situation in Australia. We look at what's happening with Brexit. Some of the politics here across Europe are very frightening. I was talking to my mate Julian the other day and saying how we shouldn't be down on our French friends, but how amazing it is that in France we have President Macron sort of giving a bit of hope that there could be some values-based leadership out there. I don't have the answer to this, and the interesting thing about the article that appeared in the New York Times, "The Boys Are Not All Right," well, it doesn't profess to have the answer either, but it's just a wonderful article. And when I share you this podcast, I have put the link to it on Facebook, but I'll also put it on LinkedIn. But it's really grand and a really thought-provoking article. And I think we must have these discussions about this problem, because it's not just about gun control. It's about who's coming through our system, our education system, our life system. We could talk about this for hours. I'm not going to. But one of the things another article that prompted me when I read it earlier this week, it was a brief headline I think I saw on Facebook, where it highlighted that as a white male with great privilege, I don't have to get involved in politics. And I have, for most of my life, stayed out of that. But it urges people to actually speak up and talk about these things. And I talk about these things in private, but seldom in my writing, seldom in podcasts. I like to think inspirational stories can win the day. But I do think it's important that we start talking about these things, because really we have a very broken system when these young men are coming out doing these things. And let's think about the Las Vegas shooter, also a white man, also broken, I think, and not maybe able to break away from the brokenness that perhaps he felt all his life as a child. Who knows? We don't know that person. We can't imagine these things. But what we can look at is what's happening as a consequence, and these shootings suggest something's wrong. I wonder if we had guns in other parts of the world, if we wouldn't see mass shootings too, because I don't think this broken boy problem is confined to the United States. Anyway, these are my thoughts on that. I wanted to keep it within 10 minutes, so here we are. And let's talk next week about another issue. I'm Scott Poynton. Thanks for listening.